To start, I want to take out this air box, and the first step is to loosen the clamp. Flathead screwdriver, get this out of the way. Disconnect this. It's supposed to have a lock on the backside that you pry up. This one does not. Get this off of here. On the backside here, there's a 10mm bolt. Let's get that out. Pull up on this. Slide it out of here. There we go. As you can see, this engine mount bracket is in the way of us getting to the water pump. So the 15mm socket, I'm just going to remove these two bolts and flip this out of our way. Take both of these out, and then this mount can be moved up and out of our way. Next, I want to break free the 4 10mm bolts that hold this pulley on, and it's easiest to do with the belt on. That way there's still pressure on this pulley and it doesn't want to just keep spinning. Grab your 10mm wrench, try to break these free. If for some reason the belt starts to spin, I'll show you how you can keep pressure on it. Leave these in, don't take them all the way out. Okay, for me, so far, the belt is not letting go of this pulley, which is great. Okay. All right, so if the pulley starts spinning with the belt, you can just go to the tensioner and apply extra tension. Either way, the next step is to actually remove tension and get this belt off. For this, you can use whatever you prefer. I'm just going to use a 3/8 breaker bar. You can use a ratchet, a serpentine belt tool, whatever you have. Basically, pull up on the tensioner and slip the belt off of wherever to create some slack. Let the tensioner down. So I took it off of this top idler pulley. Now I'm going to take it off of the water pump, set it aside. You can remove it completely if you want, or you can just set it aside. I'm just going to pull it off because I don't want coolant spilling all over my belt. Now let's remove the bolts here for the pulley. Take the pulley off. I want to take this bracket off so I can have space to remove the water pump when the time comes. 13mm socket, remove both of the bolts that hold it on. There's one. Now the 13mm socket, I want to break free all the bolts that hold this water pump on. I have a collection bucket underneath because coolant will come out. There should be 5 bolts in total. Now I'm going to switch to my air ratchet and just remove all of them. Now you can grab the water pump, wiggle it. Again, coolant will come out, so have a collection bucket, remove it from the engine. There it is. Make sure the gasket comes with it, which it did for me. Sometimes it'll get stuck on the block. Either way, we'll have to clean up that area. So I'm going to start with a rag, just wipe off any remaining coolant and debris so I can clearly see the surface and where I need to clean. It actually doesn't look too bad. I will take a razor blade though and just go around the whole surface here and just scrape up any corrosion and build up that there is. Okay, wipe off the area. Take your new water pump with your new gasket. Make sure it's lined up properly. And it went like this with this freeze plug on the bottom with the single side bolt towards the back of the vehicle or the back of the engine. Slide this down while making sure the gasket stays on there. Start a bolt through. That way it at least holds it on in one area. Then it's got this as a pivot point for the rest of it. Now go around and line up all the other bolts, start those on. And once you start 2 of them, pretty much the rest of them should fall into place. Let's snug them all up and then we'll torque them to 18 foot-pounds. I'm going to go in a cross pattern, that way the water pump can seat itself properly. Okay, 18 foot-pounds. Now let's just go around one more time and double check them all. Get the pulley back on and line it up with the water pump and start in the 4 10mm bolts. Okay, they're all bottomed out. Let's put the belt on. As you can see, I cleaned up the pulley because it was pretty rusty. This belt isn't the easiest one to put on, but I will provide you with a diagram. That way you at least know how the belt is routed. Okay, so drop the belt down. I'm going to start with the harmonic balancer, or the crank. Put it on there first. Okay, once it's on there, I'm going to try and hold it up top here. Put it around the AC compressor on the bottom, around the water pump, around this front idler pulley. Make sure it's sitting on all the ribs where it needs to. From the water pump, it's going to go down to this idler pulley over here, but also over the power steering pump here. Bring it back over the alternator, and once it's routed like this, I'm going to try and hold it steady so I can bring it down to the tensioner. And I know it needs to go underneath this idler pulley, but that's going to be put on last. It's over the tensioner. So now all I have to do is make sure that it's sitting properly where it needs to, which it seems like it is. Oh, fell off the AC. There we go. So I'm just going to hold pressure on it. It has tension everywhere. That's good. I can see that it's on all the grooves for all the grooved pulleys, and it's even on all the flat pulleys. All right, now let's take some tension off the tensioner, put it on the idler. There we go. Okay, let go of the tensioner. Remove your tool, and let's double check everything. You don't want it to be off one rib, otherwise it'll cut and shred itself as you run the vehicle. And it all looks to be good, so that's perfect. Let's put this bracket back on here. Snug these two up, make sure they're nice and tight. Bring the motor mount down, or I guess this is more of a shock absorber for the engine mount. Put the two 15mm bolts in, line this up kind of to where it was before. Let's snug it down, hold it in place, tighten it up. Make sure it's nice and tight. Before we move on too much further, let's just snug up these bolts here for the water pump pulley. Just make them as tight as they'll go. I'm just going to make them as tight as they'll go without the belt spinning. Alright, they're all nice and tight. Let's get the air box back in, line it up with its mounting holes, make sure it clears this AC line. Put it over the mounting location at the back here. Get this 10mm screw back in. Put this AC line back where it belongs and plug in the mass airflow sensor. Make sure it clicks in. Bring the air intake tube back over, line it up, slide it all the way on. All right, that's tight. Now I'm going to fill up my cooling system. You can use manufacturer specified coolant, or I'm using universal. I'm going to fill up this overflow almost all the way, and then I'm going to start the engine and let the water pump circulate, push the air out, and pull the coolant in. Once it reaches operating temperature, I will shut it off. I'm gonna have the heat on in the car, not on full blast, but on low, but you want the heat to be turned all the way to the hot. That way it circulates through the heater core. And of course, once the cooling fans come on and you feel both the upper and the radiator hose warm, you know the thermostat opened. It has pushed out all of the air that's in the system. We can shut it off, let it cool down, and cap it off. I'm gonna leave the cap off while it's bleeding. That way it doesn't create pressure. But of course, once it's done, I'm gonna put the cap back on. So I'm gonna leave it right about there, and then we'll turn on the engine and let it bleed. Okay, it's been a while. The car is hot. I'm gonna cap this off, take it for a drive, and then come back and readjust. When you tighten this, you wanna make sure it's tight all the way.